Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So, this morning I'm talking about my journey with procrastination. It's a funny title, I know, but I wanted to explore this because this is going to be a theme for me over the next month or so. And I wanted to talk about my story in terms of procrastination because I think it's probably similar to yours and similar to a lot of people's. I saw myself as a procrastinator, I think, for a long, long time. So that probably, well, the first time I can really remember it is perhaps school and kind of doing my homework in the corridor that was supposed to be in that day, because I hadn't got it done. But I also remember intense periods of study, and I had to study really hard because I don't know if I've shared this very often, but I have a condition called Erlen syndrome, which is quite similar to dyslexia in terms of it does influence, it affects your ability to read, affects your ability to study. It's basically a sensitivity to black print on white paper. So for me, reading is not easy. I get tired very easily when I read it, particularly find it difficult to read on the screen because the glare is also not helpful. And the condition is helped by using coloured overlays. And I only found out I had this condition when I was, I think, in my early 30s, when I actually was learning how to screen children. When I was a teacher, I learned to screen children for this condition. And that's when I discovered that I had it really quite severely. So that was all very interesting. So it kind of, when I think about how I struggled with things and how I struggled with concentration and perhaps therefore saw myself as not as productive as I should be, or not doing what I should be doing, that I suspect was a massive part of it. But anyway, so there was that. There's vague recollections of that kind of last minute homework malarkey. But I'm sure I wasn't the only teenager who's been very last minute with it. You know, once your parents are not kind of over you all the time making you do it, you tend to miss bits, don't you? So then the next time I suppose I became consciously aware of it was maybe when I had two small children. I was working full time as a teacher, and I was probably very tired. It's probably the understatement of the century is I was probably very tired and I had a lot on. And I remember, I can feel a bit of emotion coming up about this because I remember calling myself lazy if I didn't feel like doing things, if I was doing something other than what I thought I should be doing, in inverted commas. I called myself lazy. Lazy all sorts, like, I'm not going to say the rude words that I said to myself, but that noise with the tissue, by the way. I call myself pretty unpleasant things, and I was unkind to myself. And I guess that's something that I would hope, from watching me and listening to me crying about it, that you see if you're doing that to yourself. Are you being really unkind to yourself about procrastination, about not doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. Because that doesn't help. It really doesn't help. So I guess that awareness of that "you're a lazy you-know-what" voice was probably during my teaching career. I worked at a school in Leeds when I was a specialist in my early 30s when I had two small children. My children were born when I was 28 and 30. In my early 30s, I had a pretty, I guess I was the next step down from the deputy head in the school, the senior teacher, you might call me. And yeah, special needs coordinator, ICT coordinator, Key Stage 1 coordinator. At one point, I had a lot of additional responsibilities in that role and two very small children. And I was hard on myself. I remember, really talking to myself really quite unpleasantly about my laziness, because it is called that, isn't it? And it's really interesting actually, because I do a bit before I start all of this kind of a direction of exploration, and this next month the exploration is going to be around procrastination, around motivation, around productivity. I do a little bit of research on Pinterest actually, and so I search, put the word procrastination and see kind of what comes up, what people are talking about, what are the subjects, so that I can point you in the opposite direction to what most of the stuff is saying on Pinterest, because I noticed so many of the pins that had the word lazy on them, like how to overcome procrastination and laziness. Like a lot of that. And that is it's a mean label, that, isn't it? Like lazy it's a really unpleasant thing to call somebody, and it's a really unpleasant thing to call yourself. And I know there are people out there who are doing that, and it's not kind. And that doesn't help. Do you think calling yourself lazy and calling yourself a procrastinator helps you to do it less? It doesn't really work that way, because the more we focus on what we don't like about ourselves, the more of that we see, the worse we feel about ourselves, and the less likely we are to get off our butts and do things, quite frankly. So that was one of the phases in life that I was really aware of it. And I don't think I did much about it other than beat myself up a lot and use steely determination to get things done. And I did get things done. I got a lot of things done. I ran it. I was in a full-time job, which I was really good at, and had two small children and an ex-husband who, bless him, was not particularly helpful. So there was that phase. And then I think when I first burnt out in March 2015, initially I was told that I was depressed, and because it looks very similar, and doctors don't really get adrenal burnout yet, I don't think. Hopefully they will, because it will make a very great difference, I think, to people who are being treated who are burnt out as opposed to depressed. But I read a lot about depression, and then I decided that period that I'd suffer from depression a lot, that this lack of motivation, not wanting to do things was actually depression, and that I kind of had this story then that I'd had periods of depression all through my life, and that was why I was lazy. That voice in your head saying you're lazy is because you're depressed. That was my next story. So many stories. It's really interesting when you look back on them and you see how they fall away. So the most recent experience I've had with depression has been around my business, because I think, like many people, I started a business in the autumn of 2016. So I was still not in a brilliant place health-wise. I still had some really rubbishy days, when a combination of my adrenals being a bit whacked, underactive thyroid, which had then kicked in, and the menopause was cruising towards me as well, all combined to just sometimes have me feel just like really rubbish and not really feeling like doing much. And beating myself up for that as well, because the story is, if you're in business, well, you must be motivated all the time and you must get on with it and you must. So I really bought into that, and that was my thing that I was trying to improve. And I'm picking up my phone now to look at my Audible library, and I'm going to share with you a few of the books that there were many, and I'm scrolling quite a long way down because I haven't been listening to those books for quite a long time now. But there was a phase where all the books that I listened to were all about getting things done. And so here we go, the 5 a.m. club. That's one of those, isn't it? Get your you-know-what together. There's things about being resilient, things about take control of your life. There's one. Compound effect. The 5-second rule was one. The things like all the books about habits. I can't find. The Big Leap, Atomic Habits, Mini Habits, Better Than Before, Hardwiring Happiness. I've read more about habits. High Performance Habits. Lots about habits. They are being brilliant. Lots of things. Lots of books that were about trying to fix this, trying to just be better, trying to do more, be more, not be more really, just be better at doing things, get more done, that kind of thing. And I read a lot of those books. And then the story was also that the procrastination was because I didn't feel good about myself. I wasn't good enough. I didn't believe I deserved success. And so then there was a great big piece around poking around the past, trying to find the root cause of why I didn't think I was good enough, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then affirmations, like trying to say things to myself to make myself more productive. So so you may be wondering how this all came to a head and why I'm not concerned really about productivity and procrastination motivation anymore. Well, it's because I learned the 3 principles, and I learned, the inside out understanding. And the result of that has been a very different relationship with productivity. And that's the key, actually. It's not that I don't know if I'm more or less productive. I feel like I'm more productive. I feel like I get more done. I've got more creativity, but so much more done from inspiration than motivation. But over the next month, I'll be exploring that a bit more. So keep tuning in wherever you're tuning in. Reach out to me if you want to and you'd like to talk about this more and you think there might be something in it for you. But that's just my little journey with procrastination. But what I would love you to see from this is that, first of all, be kind to yourself. You're a human being. You are not a machine, and you are not supposed to be on it all the time. And secondly, I hope you've just heard the layers of the stories. There's this story about me, then there was another story about me, and there's another story. We've all got all of that. And it is when we start to see through that the layers of that start to fall away. When we become the watcher of that as opposed to being in the thick of it. So I'm looking forward to exploring this over the next month. I hope you're going to come on that journey with me. Lots of love. Take care. And one last thing. If you are feeling calm right now, that is not coming from me. It's coming from you, because that's who you really are. I'm going to talk more about that as we go over the next month too. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.